And if you think about it, RPA now feels very much like a technology that is probably about as sexy actually as an Excel macro now. I actually spent probably 6 or 7 years of my career between O2 and BT, basically trying to eliminate voice as a contact channel. Even if technology could literally replace 90% of us tomorrow, do you honestly think we're going to let it happen? No.
AI is advancing, like exponentially it is advancing, and it is replacing humans. What I believe is that AI is not going to replace humans completely, but it is going to replace humans who lack the understanding of AI and how to use it. So I think we are rolling. So today we have Wayne Butterfield with us, the first one to adopt robotic process automation at an enterprise level, partner and global head of intelligent automation solutions at ISG, which has reported a GAAP revenue of $61 million for the third quarter of 2024 and is a global AI centered technology research and advisory firm. I welcome you to the AIBROS Show, Wayne. How's it going?
Excellent. No, thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to the discussion today, and yeah, diving into some of the past and a little bit about the future. So let's get cracking.
Sure. So, like, my very first quick question is that how does it feel to hold such big responsibilities and titles under your name and still rocking under the AI field? How does it feel that?
Um, Great question. I don't think I've ever been asked that. Like many people, suffer from imposter syndrome. So
Mhm.
the weight of my experience and titles and people's opinion of me is far greater than I have of myself. So, um, but I spend a great deal of time reading, listening,
Mhm.
conversing at
Mhm.
events, and so I think, as well as my experience of actually delivering a lot of these things, and some of my superpowers, which we might get to talk about a little bit later on, I at
Mhm.
least give myself a good foundation because there is so much going on.
Mhm.
You can't not read and consume. You've got to consume as much content as possible at the moment to remain relevant as
Mhm.
somebody in AI or somebody who's been in AI for a long time. So yeah, I mean, I love my role at ISG. I love helping clients, and I love the fact that I've got war wounds from actually deploying a lot of these technologies very early on in their adoption.
Yeah, I can see so many books related to AI and robotics at your background. So I assume that you read a lot, you consume a lot of content related to AI. Like,
I'm actually in a few of these as well, which is interesting. So that's always good. I don't think I could ever write a book myself. I like have ADHD, so I'm all over the place. I just could never concentrate. I can concentrate to write an article, a book. Hats off to anybody who can write a book. Very
mhm.
happy to input into a book, but yeah, again, even reading now, I can't read a book. I have to listen to it. I like those because they look cool on the background, but you'll actually hear me listening to books, not reading them now.
All right. So I want you to take all of us through your journey from your early days of O2, where you start working with RPA, robotic process automation, to now at the current point where you are the partner and global lead at ISG.
Mhm. So we have to go all the way back to about 2009 for that to
Mhm.
happen. Which I'm aging myself here.
Mhm.
It was. I can't believe it's 15 years. Um, and if you think about it, RPA now feels very much like a technology that is probably about as sexy actually as an Excel macro now. But back in
Mhm.
2010, seeing something that was enterprise grade automate work completed by non IT professionals was pretty
Mm-hmm.
groundbreaking. If you go back 15 years ago, we didn't even have the iPhone at that point. There was no smartphones. We had Blackberries. So to see work being completed really quickly, with great levels of accuracy, etc., was really cool. And
Mm-hmm.
that kind of built the foundation of my career. It wasn't the end. It was certainly RPA. I didn't ever think was the end game. But if you think about RPA, and I do not class RPA as AI. Other
Mm-hmm.
people do. It's not for me. But it did give me that foundation that got me into things like conversational AI, basic NLP all the way back then, um,
Mm-hmm.
OCR, intelligent document processing, thinking of these different technologies and how you can automate more. So I always think of myself as I'm a person who drives operational efficiency. That's my realm with AI, and others
Mm-hmm.
may well drive insights from data. I've never
Mm-hmm.
been a data junkie, right? I'm not a data engineer. I'm nothing like that. I hats off to those people who can deal with data. That's not me. I want to see a process. I want to make it more efficient, and I want to use AI and technology to do that. And thankfully, that's what I was able to do for about 6 years at O2. And I think by the end, we had about 1.2 million transactions a month being automated using RPA in what, by 2016, 2017. It was massive. I mean, we
Mm-hmm.
probably were one of the world's largest users of the technology at that fact. We probably were, if not the world's largest. Most organizations hadn't even heard of it at that point. We go back to
Mm-hmm.
2016, 2017. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, very, very early on, I think it actually helped build my career. It something switched in my brain to figure out that you can use technology, because before
Mm-hmm.
that it all been process improvement. I've been working with my offshore partners in India. We've been leaning our processes out, making them more efficient. And then you get
Mm-hmm.
to a point, and a person can only go so quick. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I figured out, at the time that we needed to do something else, and that something else was RPA at that point. And that was, as I say, the very start of the journey. Good 6 or 7 years. We know where the technology is now. Just about every organization in the world has RPA at some scale. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and um, and I think it's been really useful technology at a phase in time for a lot of organizations.
Hmm. Yeah. Right. This actually sounds very inspiring when you say that you started automation. The term automation itself is so new to people, even at these days, right? Even at times when we have AI advancing each and every day exponentially, many of them don't know what automation is, how it can be achieved. Back in 2010 you were able to integrate that at an enterprise level, and you had such a great journey related to automation. That sounds really amazing, actually. So let's talk about what ISG is doing right now. ISG is a global AI focused technology firm which focuses on research and advisory. So what AI is playing, what role AI is playing when you're working at ISG? What,
Mhm.
how you are utilizing AI at ISG?
Yep. So we utilize AI in certain aspects, and I'll talk a little bit about some of the stuff that we do there. But mainly, we're
Mm-hmm.
advising people on how they should use AI, how they should set themselves up. So whether it's governance and AI councils and
Mm-hmm.
rules of engagement and risk frameworks and things like that. We consult on areas like, if you want to use AI, this is how to do it
Mm-hmm.
safely. This would be
Okay.
how to curate your data in the right place, create a data tower, etc. So we do some consulting on that type of side, and I've done things like governance and implementations and agentic AI and all those good things over the years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where we also assist is we work with just about every large service provider in the world. Everyone from an
Mm-hmm.
Accenture to a Genpact to a WNS to a Foundever. And these guys are all doing AI. And they have
Okay.
clients who are wanting to do AI, And so ISG is a bit of a matchmaker. And a lot of my role is to link client problems with service provider opportunities. And also, actually, one of the things that I'm really focused on right now is what I call BPO 4.0, which is the
Mm-hmm.
future of outsourcing. And what does that look like in an agentic world? Eventually, what does that look like when service is completed by software, not necessarily by people? And how do you contract for that? How do you have commercials for that type of thing? How do you buy it?
Mm-hmm.
That's the other thing that
Mm-hmm.
ISG does is we help people figure out what to buy and how to buy it and how much they should pay. And the
Okay.
world of outsourcing has changed over the years, but I don't think that much of it has changed. There's more change now to some of its core fundamentals than there's ever been. Right, everything else was incrementally add. Now we're substituting people for technology, and when you do that, you have to start contracting and commercializing that in different ways. And so, again, that's the
Mm-hmm.
bit that's probably keeping me really interested right now. Is it's not what I'm
Mm-hmm.
deploying; it's how I'm
Mm-hmm.
helping the $1 trillion services industry figure out how it can buy and sell and use and contract for AI.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, what I was thinking is that how are you trying to help people using AI? How are you trying to help people? How much should they pay for what they are buying? Can you please elaborate on that?
Oh, well, that always depends on what they're buying. And the interesting thing right now is well, first of all, nobody has the answer. Okay? Nobody has
Mm-hmm.
the answer.
Right.
It's a question.
Mm-hmm.
I ask your question to every service provider around the world. We're all
Mm-hmm.
working together right now to try and figure out how we can create something that somebody will buy. The issue we
Okay.
have, okay, the issue the world has is a buyer is used to buying things in a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
Location, headcount, price per headcount, price per hour, price per location, right? Very easy to compare providers when you have a rate card.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't got a rate card at the moment for Agentic FTE. We haven't really got rate cards for a lot of the AI services that these guys can bring with them. And so we're trying to think through what are the new commercial models that need to be in place. So when we get commercial models, then we can start comparing price versus price, provider versus provider. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to take time, right? And I speak to a lot of service providers, and they'll tell you, "Hey, we've done this," but they've done it once, and 97% of everything else is done in a very different way. So there's no common ground yet on how to buy AI, how much to buy AI for, and how do you know that you're getting good value for money? It really is at the moment. It's on a case by case basis. And a lot of people are doing value selling. Okay, so what's the size of the problem? How big is the problem? How much is that problem worth to you? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
well, we'll sell it for this because we know that this is a big problem. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so there is a little bit of that at times as well, but more often than not, I think what we're going to see is you're not necessarily just going to buy AI on its own when you are working with a BPO, a service provider. You're generally
Mm-hmm.
buying a package now. Okay, you're buying an outcome. What is it that you need?
Mm-hmm.
We need to handle, I'm going to make this one up, 3 million calls from our customers per month. Okay,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that's the outcome that they need. Historically, those 3 million calls would have all been handled by 18,000 people. And you would have paid for 18,000 people at this rate, etc., etc. Now, it's like, okay, we'll give you the 3 million calls. How we do it shouldn't necessarily worry. Okay, it might be 10,000 people, it might be 3,000 people, it might be 20,000 people. Don't worry. This is how much it's going to cost you. It's less than what you were going to pay before. And let us worry about how we're going to do it. And how are we going to do
Okay.
it? Conversational AI, Gen AI, Agentic AI, automation. Okay, that's how we're going to do it. And that's where the service providers are trying to maneuver their buyers. Hey, don't worry about how much, who's going to do it. Just trust us, and we'll only charge you this much. There's a disconnect at the moment. I think we're going to need a couple of years to get people into the mindset that that is the way that we're going to have to do this. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't necessarily answer your question, but there is no answer yet. But I'm working on it.
So I am curious, like, are you trying to normalize or standardize the costing of AI agents? Are you trying to standardize that throughout the globe, throughout the market? Is that the thing?
I don't think so. Only because the world of agents, agentic AI, etc., I don't know, it's a little bit like the Wild West right now. Okay, you've got historical technologies now known as agents. We've got true agentic AI over here. They're all doing different things at different levels and different complexities. There's no
Mm-hmm.
way to normalize it from a cost perspective right now. I would suggest. I think what I'm trying to do is get away from charging for specific technologies and just look at the outcome. Think about what you want to achieve. What do you need to achieve from a
Mm-hmm.
cost perspective in order for this to make
Mm-hmm.
sense for you? And then if we know what the
Mm-hmm.
cost is, then we can kind of work back to know what is the solution, technology,
Mm-hmm.
AI and people that is needed over a course of over a runway in order to hit that cost goal.
Mm-hmm.
So if anything, I'm actually trying to stay away from pricing of specific technologies and specific agents.
Hmm. Because in the current market scenario, I don't think it is possible to normalize the prices or the costing of AI agents, because there are so many service providers, and some is selling at $15, some is selling the same at $10. You cannot ask them to, hey, bring everything at 7.5.
Yep.
So because, yeah, because everyone has their own journey of how they are providing that service, etc., etc., things. So I think this is going to be interesting in the future itself. Let's see. So I think I would like you to, explain RPA, robotic process automation, to our viewers, so that they can, get an idea of what this is. And following that, I would like you to tell them how this is still relevant in today's AI powered world.
Mm-hmm. Robotic process automation, for anyone who doesn't already know, is the replication of keystrokes and mouse clicks on a screen. It is very transactional. It's a technology that automates transactional activities. I
Mm-hmm.
call it handwork. Things that you do
Mm-hmm.
with your hands. You use a mouse. You might type something in. You might click a few
Mm-hmm.
buttons, like you're doing handwork. Okay, it doesn't require a lot of thought. It's just handwork. Very repetitive. This type of stuff that you would, have an end-to-end process or task, which is very transactional. Um, as I say, it's a
Mm-hmm.
technology that can run on desktops and also in servers. And I think one of the things that we did at O2 was we were the first virtual deployment of this technology. The organizations that had gone before had rooms full of desktops, very akin to the old macro of yesterday. Um, so it's I would say it's a simple technology that has turned into a significant part of the toolkit that a lot of organizations have when they think about how can they make things more efficient. So is it still relevant today? Yeah, I think it absolutely is. And for a few reasons, right? The main one is just because we have AI, agentic AI, and other technologies doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be as cost effective
Mm-hmm.
or as relevant for a lot of the transactional activities that RPA does. Now, if you think about work, um, when I think about agents and I think about agentic, there's certain types of work, knowledge work, expert work that I think that type of technology is perfect for. Changing an address in a system
Mm-hmm.
6,000 times a day is not something I would want an AI agent to have to do. I want the assurance that there is a 100% level of accuracy, and that's the type of thing that RPA gives you. Um, I think it has its place. That place is very much it's that place is very much in the transactional type activity of work, and more often than not, high volume transactional stuff. And I would keep it in its box over there. Guess what? Lots of organizations have lots of that type of work, and I'm yet to see any new AI technology be able to replace RPA at scale with the same levels of accuracy, the same costs, and so I think until something new comes in, RPA is going to be around for a wee while longer.
Hmm. Okay. So just a quick thing which I would like to ask. Can you explain us what is the broader the difference between RPA and the modern world AI automation?
Hmm.
What is the key difference? Is it
Yeah,
same
I
or
mean,
is it different?
mhm. So I kind of I mentioned handwork before. Handwork is RPA. I call
Right.
headwork is AI. If you think
Okay.
about a lot of the automation that AI brings, interestingly, what
Uh-huh.
it's doing is it's structuring unstructured data, or it's understanding unstructured data. That's what a lot of AI in the automation world is kind of doing, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
if it's reading an email, if it is extracting some information from a document, a medical record, if it is conversing with a person in an IVR, it's like it's all to do with unstructured. Conversation is unstructured. Written documents are unstructured. Like it's all unstructured stuff, right? It's the stuff that RPA could never do. You never want to give unstructured stuff to RPA.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When I think about, I would ordinarily think about, AI is trying to basically replicate different types of different types of human capabilities. So you've got speech, you've got sight, you've got thinking and problem solving. These are all things that we do when we do work, right? And so
Right.
for me, the AI, the automation in AI automation is basically just replicating some of these things that we do. And as I say, in the main, for a lot of work, it's I want to be able to see something, I want to be able to converse with something, and I need to be able to solve some problems. Like they're the three things that we as people do incredibly well. It's why even 50 years down the line, there's still going to be a lot of people in work because we're very, very, very hard to replace at scale. Um, yes, we can be replaced in tasks and in parts of our role, but the reality is the human brain is still, without doubt, the most efficient and mind-blowingly brilliant piece of technology that we still have in the world today.
Correct. Correct. Indeed. Indeed. Yeah. So I I want to ask, ISG recently shared insights on how company can utilize AI to cut costs and improve efficiency when they can leverage AI to increase and enhance their efficiencies in their workflows. So can you break down for us and what is your view on that and how is ISG helping organizations to achieve that?
Yeah. Um, and the best way of us helping organizations to achieve that is usually it starts with some form of understanding the thing that they want to have, let's call it transformed. So whether it's a F&A department, whether it's a customer contact center, whether it's procurement, supply chain, right? There's usually something that someone needs to transform. They usually want to transform to save cost. what we would usually do is understand that, get a really good understanding of what it is, what the current state of play is. And then the way that ISG usually goes about this is we work with the service provider community, and we're like, okay, let's just say it's F&A. There's a 2,000 person finance and accounting department that you want to drive efficiencies in. Do you know what? That, we've understood it. We can see how mature you are at the moment. You're not utilizing these technologies. Our recommendation is that these three service providers could and would be very happy to take your F&A department and cut your cost by 55%. Are you interested? And that is the type of thing that ISG is renowned for and has spent the past 20 odd years doing. Understanding the state of play, understanding the service provider market, and again, matchmaking those two things together to drive huge cost savings for end clients.
All right, that sounds interesting, man. So, since you have been into automation, as you told, back from 2009-10, right? I want you to, compare the level of automation back then till the time it is at present at 2025, the level of automation back in 2010 till 2025, the current time. And I want you to tell us what changes it has witnessed along the way.
Wow. I mean, if you think about it, there's so much that has changed in those 15 years. Everything from self-service to the app store, right? Everybody now has an app. I class an app as I class an application as automation. We've got, so you've got websites, you've got app stores, you've got signed in areas, you've got the ability to do things yourself. Self-service for me is automation. So you've got self-service, that's come. The other thing I was doing in kind of 2009, 2010, conversational AI, very, very basic stuff at that point. Keyword, very, very scripted responses, not very many journeys, etc. But it was early journey, right? Okay, so we start to see the rise of conversational automation, all the way from very scripted to now, where it is could in theory be very natural conversations, synthetic voices. We've got a lot, empathy. There's a lot of stuff that's happened in that kind of conversational automation space, both on text and obviously more recently, I would say even more so on the world of voice, which is interesting because I'll give you a little insight. I actually spent probably 6 or 7 years of my career between O2 and BT, basically trying to eliminate voice as a contact channel. I was a big user and driver of online chat, social messaging, online communities. I ran these for O2 and BT, and it was all to try and drive away voice contacts. Why? Because voice was our most expensive channel. It's really funny now that voice is back, right? It's back because now it no longer has to be the most expensive channel, because we now have AI that can complete a lot of the transactional activities that people can. And so now we're probably not that bothered about trying to drive people into other channels, because it's probably still easier to resolve many queries using your voice than it is texting or typing. So, the whole voice automation space is another. Even things like, if you think about the types of work that you can automate. So it's gone from very transactional, back office, mind-numbing work. Then it went into the conversational aspect, so the contact center was significantly impacted, which obviously is a lot across a lot of different industries. And then, more recently, what we've seen with the progress in Gen AI is complex work in highly paid roles was never something that you could automate before. Okay, because those people had been to college for 4 years, they had degrees, they were experts. and there is no way you could ever automate what they did. You just couldn't do it because they didn't do processes. All of their knowledge, a vast majority of their knowledge was in their head, or they knew how to find the answers in the vast amounts of data that were available to them to do their work. So that's probably more recently. That's certainly the biggest one that I think has opened up something new. Um, what I would say is that I feel like over the last 15 years we've been digitally iterating as opposed to digitally transforming. Every kind of new technology is just like built a little bit on top of the other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So you go from basic NLP to chatbots, and then you go from chatbots to basic conversational AI, and then to better conversational AI. But none of them are individually transformed. You just got slightly better and slightly more automation every time. And Gen AI for me, I think it's a little bit different. Yes, you can automate more conversations now, but that ability to train an AI to be an expert, which historically you had to go to college for 4 years, probably earn $100,000 in your role, probably somewhere in legal, in healthcare, etc. Quite highly complex industries that required a lot of historical, training and schooling, etc. To have those type of roles now be,
Mm-hmm.
if not replaced, but certainly supported by an AI. Like that's kind of like the big jump that I saw over the last kind of 3 years. Other than that, it's all been just like building slightly on RPA, intelligent document processing, chatbots and conversational AI. So yeah, I think that's probably it's light and day. Imagine transactional RPA to now generative AI and agentic AI. That is quite the journey across just 15 years.
Amazing, absolutely. And what do you think now about the AI voices, like the companies who are generating AI voices like 11 Labs, Sesame? What do you think about them right now?
Um, I'm all for it, to be honest. I think it obviously all has to be used in the right way, and that's kind of critical, right? There's the
Correct.
challenges with deepfakes is that there is a lot of opportunity for people to misuse those technologies and do harm.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so if you kind of remove that and just think, well, most people aren't bad actors. Okay, so let's just take away the bad actors and just think about what we can do with those type of technologies. Um, I think as long as it's done in the right way and the right people they are paid for the
Mm-hmm.
use of their voice which is in theory their data, then I'm okay with this. Why wouldn't we? Why if you could get away with not having to manually complete an audio book for any of those books, somebody historically would have had to have read that entire book out loud so that I could listen to it.
Mm-hmm.
Not any longer with companies like 11 Labs. So, with the right user cases, I think there's absolutely, I really do see the value in a lot of that. And again, there is always the risk there, but I'm very comfortable, and I have my own AI clone voice and avatar myself. So this is real me, but I do have my
Mm-hmm.
own. So I'm a user as well as a believer.
All right, all right. Sounds good. Sounds good. So, just one more thing to spice things up. I need to discuss a really serious thing. When I was researching about your achievements, I came across an article on LinkedIn, which was titled as "Are AI Agents the End of Humans in Contact Center?" Right. So I want you to share your point of view on that, and
Mhm.
I want you to, parallelly tell us about what might be the future of customer support actually look according to you in the near future.
Mhm. Mhm. Cool. Well, I grabbed the headline, but the reality is I don't believe that AI agents are the end of the humans in the contact center. So,
Right.
having lived and breathed contact centers for 20 years. I know firsthand how complex they are, and the reasons why most technologies will not be able to simply automate the vast majority of work that goes in on them. Do I eventually think that there are going to be significantly more automated conversations than non-automated? Yes, yeah, I do. I think we're going to get there, and I don't think we're that far away from the technology being there. There are a couple of reasons why it won't be that quick, though. The first one is, as you all know, every AI needs data to be trained. Okay. Now, in the contact center, a lot of the data isn't numerical; it's process and knowledge. Unfortunately, the vast majority of that, or at least a decent percentage of that, is either incomplete or missing, and it's in people's heads. It's called tribal knowledge. And most people in the contact center are filled with tribal knowledge, but it was half of the stuff was never written down. So you want an AI agent to replicate what a person's doing. You might struggle to do that when what they're doing is never written down anywhere, and yet they just know, because again, human brain, the amazing problem-solving tool that we have, they just know what to do. They have common sense. They're able to. They've probably seen it before. So all of these things are the reason why I don't believe we're going to see the elimination of people in the contact center. But I do think we'll get to a point where it's going to be at least 60-40, 70-30 for all conversations. Maybe a little bit higher than that, depending how far out we go. But I think we will get there. Eventually we'll get to 80-20, quite possibly, and that's massive. But I think we're going to talk here about 10, 15, 20 years, not because the technology is not ready, it's because we aren't ready for the technology at scale across. You think about all industries, all contact centers, all different sizes of business. That's just massive. It's like, people are only deploying RPA for the first time now. There's no way that they're going to have 80% of their calls answered by an agentic AI in the next, 3 years. It's just not going to happen. So yeah, I think we will see a very AI first contact channel, contact support, customer support. But I think we'll always have people in the background there just to deal with all of those edge cases. Because even if the technology can do it, do you really want it to? Do you really want it to? We've seen some interesting stories, at least over the last kind of 12 months, where you kind of leave an AI to make some decisions, then you might well be held liable for those, and they might not actually be the best decisions for your organization. So. I think for a while, for a long while, we are still going to be there to back up our AI overlords in the contact support channels.
All right. So I actually have a belief on this thing. What I believe is that people people are very much afraid about AI. Like they are listening all day that AI is advancing, like exponentially it is advancing and it is replacing humans. What I believe is that AI is not going to replace humans completely, but it is going to replace humans who lack the understanding of AI and how to use it, the utility of AI. The humans who lack the utility of AI, they are surely going to be replaced by their jobs or by their tasks, whatever you can say. So that's what I believe in. Either it is in contact centers, or you say software development, or you say media like art, wherever it is possible. If you are not aware how to use AI, you're surely going to be replaced. Is that the thing? Do you also believe in that?
I think it depends on the type of role that you complete. So if you're in a physical role, then I think it's going to be robotics. How do you work hand in hand with robotics? If you're in a senior management role, then I think again you are going to have to learn to work with AI, hand in hand for sure, without a doubt. I'm very confident there. I think most people now, as you start to think, certainly about the younger generations upwards, a lot of them have kind of grown up with it. So I think it's almost guaranteed that the younger generations are going to be utilizing AI. They're just doing it already. The older generations who haven't grown up with this type of technology, I think, are the ones who are at risk. And so, I think the quote is, "You're not going to be replaced by AI. You're going to be replaced by somebody who's using AI to be better." It's something like that, right? And I think for that, I think you're absolutely spot on. I think there's no way now that you can get away without using some form of AI technology on a pretty much daily basis in order to augment yourself and drive up your own personal productivity. So I do believe that I don't think it's yet, but I think over the next kind of 5 to 10 years, I think it's going to basically on your CV, at the moment you might say, I'm competent with Microsoft Office, right? You're going to have to say that you're competent with AI, this type of AI, that type of AI, right? It's just going to be one of those things that you have on your CV. So yeah, I do agree with you.
Great, great. So I want to know that you have been uh, as a guest speaker at many major events, AI events, and conferences. Based on your experiences, how aware do you think people are about AI today, and what are the general perceptions you're seeing amongst people with regards to AI?
Mm-hmm. I think it's a really mixed bag, to be honest. So I was at a future finance event the other week, which I spoke at, and there was a lot of senior finance people in that room, and there was a few questions asked of the room about what they knew, what they didn't know, etc. What they were doing with AI in their organization, and you know what? It wasn't a resounding positive response on people really knowing what their organizations were doing. So I think there's a big echo chamber, and I'm part of it. On LinkedIn, if you know AI, you talk about AI. If you don't, you might look and listen, and but you're not necessarily too sure. So I think there's a lot of people that don't actually know that much, aren't necessarily understanding how best to utilize it in their own organizations. And despite the fact that there are lots of very good speakers and very good conferences, and some really great AI first organizations, I still feel like the vast majority of people are still in the education phase, not necessarily in the expert phase. And I think that's going to be a long journey. And I think employers have got a really big role to play in that as well. I asked a conference recently, how many of you use AI in your day-to-day job, in day-to-day lives? 90% of people put their hands up. Okay. Ask the next question. How many of you have been trained to use AI by your company you work for? Maybe about half. Okay. How many of you know what your AI strategy is in your company? Maybe 1 in 10. So there's a big education piece, I think, still. For those like us in the industry, it feels like, well, everybody knows. We all know what we're talking about. We can talk about transformer models, and we can talk about weights and Gen AI and Agentic AI. We can talk about all of this. The whole world knows. The whole world doesn't know.
All right. Okay. So there's a vast population who doesn't know about AI and who are just using AI as a sentence completer, or just for their day-to-day task of correcting emails or correcting grammatical mistakes, right?
Mhm.
There's a lot to learn for people in the AI stream.
Definitely. No, no, there's definitely a lot to learn. And as I say, there's a lot of education that's needed. And that is going to be it's just going to be something that we just need to figure out. Like, who gets trained on Excel? Nobody, right? You just know how to use it. And, some people are really competent at it when they use it every day, and other people aren't. That's going to be the same with AI, but most people know how to use it. And so we'll get to that point that's over the next few years. But as I say, I think the employers have a big role to play in upskilling the vast majority of their employee base, especially some of those slightly older generations, so that they're not getting left behind while the new up and comers are, basically using three different technologies to, do their role for them. So there's a lot. There's a lot to do. I would think, to get everybody in a educated fashion.
All right. So, do you meet a lot of entrepreneurs in the AI space in such conferences or summits?
Yeah, I mean, to be
Any
honest,
entrepreneurs?
one of the things that I try and spend an amount of time doing is in and around the startup community. And, I've been really fortunate to work with some great organizations very, very early on in their lives, their company lives, all the way from stealth startups through to when they've been acquired, etc. There's quite a few, regardless of, which type of AI it is. So I think I've been really fortunate, and the reason why I'm incredibly passionate about that industry is I'm a problem solver by nature. I mentioned my superpowers earlier on. One of them is problem solving. Can't help it. It's like, it doesn't matter what the problem is, I will find a solution.
Hmm.
The easiest way to find a solution, like now I find, a lot of my business problems are solved by technology. So I need to know what technology is out there, what's coming down the track, what's already there, what could be automated, what type of technology. I hate it when somebody says, hey, this is my problem and I don't know the answer. So that then drives me even more to be like, okay, who are the startups that are in this space? Like, who do I need to be talking to? So yeah, for me, hats off to anybody who is an entrepreneur and can start their own business. That's not me. Um, Unfortunately, I'm just too risk averse. I just couldn't do it myself. But I am very, very supportive of those that can, and I've got a lot of founders, I'm sure, who will say very good words about the fact that I help as much as I can. I really, really do.
Great. So, what are the founders or the entrepreneurs in the AI space whom you are, been in talks with? What are these entrepreneurs planning for the future in the AI space? What are their future
Mhm.
aspiration? What are their future plans in the AI space?
I think it's very simple right now. It's agentic AI. I mean, that's basically just what it is now. AI agents and agentic AI. Even if they weren't necessarily native agentic AI technologies, i.e., they're a little bit older. They've been around 5, 6, 7 years, and so agentic AI wasn't actually even something that we would have spoken about. But they're all maneuvering towards that autonomous world of work. Right? That's where that's agentic AI. Okay, just think of it as autonomous work. Okay, that's what we're aiming towards. We're trying to get more work done autonomously, and AI
Mhm.
agents are likely one of the technologies that are going to get us to more work being completed autonomously. And that ranges for me from things like conversational support in contact centers to things like, say, the problem I'm trying to solve right now. One of the problems that I am thinking about a lot: month-end close in finance. Okay, every finance department in the world has a month-end close. Most finance departments, that I've spent time with over the past, 10 years, have got a number of FTE that are geared towards month-end close. And then when it's not month-end close, you generally have let's say people aren't as busy. I'm not saying they're not busy, not saying they're not busy. They're not as busy, but they have this month-end close where, there's no annual leave. It's all hands to the pump. And it happens every month. It is a repeatable process, but the issue is there's just too many moving parts to automate it easily using tools like RPA. I think there is a role for Agentic AI to be able to actually do significant automation in areas like month-end close. Big problems globally in all types of organizations. I think this is the type of technology that will solve that problem. It's a global problem. And I think this is the type of technology that's going to solve it. So, for that type of reason, this is for me. This is the kind of thing that I'm thinking about with the current technologies, and I think that is what many of the founders that I'm speaking with are also thinking of. Not necessarily that one problem, but they're thinking of bigger problems. And Agentic AI is the solution that they would envisage utilizing or being utilized to solve them.
All right. So, like, as we discussed right now, that AI agents or agentic AI is the future, is going to be the future in the in probably 5 to 10 years. I want to know your view. What sectors or types of jobs are the most at risk due to the rapid advancements of AI? What do you think? What sectors of jobs are in risk right now with the time when agentic AI will increase or will evolve?
I think now a lot of it is lower level finance jobs, contact center workers still very much there. Again, transactional activities in other departments. I think they're the kind of jobs that are at risk, but I think most people are going to see an augmentation of their role. And I think one of the things that we don't know as a society yet is, what are we actually going to do when, say, the marketing department now uses creative AI, uses AI that's very creative and assists. Suddenly they're 3 times more productive. Now that job doesn't disappear. It's augmented, but maybe you don't need 10 people now, maybe you need 6. So the role doesn't go because it's augmented by technology. Software developer is another one, right? Exactly the same. Does the software developer role go? No, but you might not need as many of them in the future. Okay. So I think there's some roles that will be, significantly disrupted and more than likely not be needed. And then there are other roles, and I kind of call these like middle management roles. It's like you've got your low level transactional, poorly paid FTE doing, let's call it, low level work. Okay, some of that will be impacted, has been impacted, over the years anyway. It's that middle row where the jobs don't go, but they are reduced. And, that's things like marketing, communications, maybe facilities. Like there's going to be roles, legal, software development. There's going to be roles in those type of places that are just reduced because they're now augmented. And so that is going to be a really, and that's across all industries, those type of roles, because they're generic roles that are in most organizations. I think that's kind of where I try and focus my thoughts is, what are the things that everybody does
Mm-hmm.
where the impact could be repeatable, regardless of industry, regardless of scale. It's just how big of an impact as opposed to will it be impacted. So yeah, that's kind of my views, which I think are not too dystopian. Again, what you have to remember is that people will look after ourselves more often than not. Okay, even if technology could literally replace 90% of us tomorrow, do you honestly think we're going to let it happen? No, we're not going to let it happen. And so for
Yeah.
those type of reasons, I think we're going to be, a slow burn. There's going to be augmentation as opposed to complete replacement. There'll be some roles that become obsolete. We've seen it, throughout the centuries already. But I do want us to start thinking about, though, is what do we do when we don't have more work?
Hmm.
How are we going to change? Is the working week going to get shorter? Because we still need employment. Because I don't believe in universal basic income. I think if you just give everybody something, it's just the end. It's the end of a purpose. So I think there's something needs to change in the world of work. I don't necessarily know what it is yet, but if we continue to be more productive, the world of work does not continue to fill with actual work. It continues to fill with idle time. When there's so much idle time, do we even need to work 5 days a week? Why don't we have a 3-day weekend? Why isn't that the thing that we're all aiming for? Not to make everybody unemployed. Let's make everybody employed, but only work 4 days a week so we have a 3-day weekend. Like, let's get behind that.
Hmm. Your views are actually, that your views actually remind me of someone which we had discussion with, when you said that marketing is something which can be, augmented in the near future using AI. I actually, had I got privileged to have a conversation with Sean Clark, who is the co-founder and CEO of High Level. That man actually, automated each and everything using AI. The sales and marketing CRM part, he automated each and everything, and he's providing each and everything that a team of, maybe 10 to 12 sales and marketing people can do. He's just providing all those services in just $99 a month.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
mean, this vast of, this much of change is right now we are going into this AI space. I mean, this is big. This is going to be big, and this is going to, become big as we proceed in the near future.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to, I'm asking few advices for the common people, for the people who are not from the technical background. How do they prepare for this fast-paced AI and automation revolution? How can they prepare themselves?
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing is not to be. You mentioned earlier. Lots of people are scared. Scared of the unknown. Um, there's never been a better time, actually. Accessibility of the world's best algorithms on just about any connected device for almost nothing cost wise is here, right? So it's not like anybody needs to not have some form of access. I would presume most people in the world can get access to AI now. I think that's the one big difference that we've probably seen in the last 2 or 3 years is accessibility.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got accessibility. There
Mm-hmm.
is a huge amount of knowledge, training, insights, articles, you name it, right? There is so much data about about AI, the use of AI, how to use it, etc. And it's all free. I mean, there are some paid stuff, but if you're thinking about people who don't know anything, to get from
Mm-hmm.
0 to 20, okay, so that you know enough to be dangerous, you know enough not to be scared, and you know probably when to use it. You might not use it every day, but you're forming a habit of using it. That kind of 0 to 20, there is so much stuff available. Google is your friend. LinkedIn can be your friend. Follow people like me. I post a lot of articles and surveys and other things. I just try and be helpful to other people. If I find something interesting, I'm sure others will find it interesting as well. So, and there are hundreds of people like me on LinkedIn, on other social channels who, share all of this great stuff. So, this is not, people don't try and hoard their knowledge. They try and, open it up to the world. And so,
Mhm.
for anybody who doesn't know a great deal about AI right now, this is definitely a great community of people who are, both either highly technical and amazingly brilliant at building this stuff, which is not me. I'm a user and a problem solver. So I'm trying to connect between that technology and how it's relevant for a business. And so, you've got lots of different people in different backgrounds all talking about this type of thing. Find the voice that you like, or the voices that you like, and I'm fairly certain that it won't take you long to become upskilled.
Mm-hmm. So just the advice that you would like to give is that you need to be educated about AI in a way that you know how to use it in your day-to-day lives and you are not scared of it, right?
Yeah.
All right. So throughout the podcast, as we started discussing about AI and your background in AI, we have been discussing all the brighter sides of AI, how AI has brought fortune to us, how people are leveraging AI, how people are able to ease their tons and tons of workflows, day to day redundant jobs using AI. I want to know from you: is there any darker side of AI which we all should be aware of?
Um, I don't know whether there's a darker side of AI. Clearly, there is. We mentioned deepfakes earlier on. So the ability to utilize AI to um, pretend or impersonate. Clearly, that's the dark side, right? But that again is not that prevalent. The vast majority of the world are not trying to impersonate somebody else for their own personal gain. So there's that. There is also, I would suggest, the challenge around AI being utilized for things like your personal credit score, whether you're approved for something or not, whether or not you are able to do a certain thing or not. There is definitely risks around that type of use of AI, and if you actually look at places like the European Union, etc., they make sure that that type of thing is not there. And the White House just released some more stuff, and there's lots of regulation about when not AI should be used, especially as it pertains to a person and the person's life, which is very different to automating a process at work, right? When it actually affects me and whether I could get a benefit, not get a benefit, could get a loan, couldn't get a loan, etc. That is where there is definite risk associated with this. But I think the biggest risk is that we continue to drive and target roles, jobs, and efficiency without having a good understanding of what the end game actually is. What happens if 50% of all people in the world are unemployed? What happens?
Hmm.
Yeah. I would suggest that you have the haves and the have not got jobs. And I would suggest that there is global challenges on a scale that we've never seen before. We do need to really be thinking about where are we going and what safeguards are we putting in place, not with the AI, but the impact of AI. I'm not I don't believe AGI is around the corner, and I also don't believe that the end of the human race is going to happen as a result of AGI taking over the world. But I do believe if AGI and artificial super general intelligence does become something that we create, then there is this risk that what are the people going to do if we do have technology that can do almost any job better than any person? That's the type of thing I think we need to be more aware of as we think about the issues with AI, not AI, the impact it's making, and how are we best going to set ourselves up for dealing with that in the most appropriate way for the world's population.
I actually want to ask you about this, that there are many people who know AI, but they use it in very, inappropriate ways. Like, for example, they make deep fakes. They use AI for some political agendas or any bad purposes. So
Mm-hmm.
how can the common people out there, they can protect their data, or how can the common people protect themselves from the misuse of their personal data? What are your views on this?
I think, to be honest, the genie's out of the bottle for most people. Okay. It was out of the bottle 10, 15 years ago. Most people's lives are online now. They're available.
Correct. Correct.
The genie's out of the bottle, right? You can create a deep fake now with a photo and a video, snippet of someone's voice and a photo from Facebook. It's game over, right? If somebody wants to target you, there is no defense there. The defense was long since gone, right? It ain't happening. Even now, there's no way that you can remove your past life from online, right? So, unfortunately, there isn't a great deal that you can do. Now, you may actually look at some of the surveys that I've seen recently about how much do people actually care about their personal data. And I think a lot of it, and again, it depends on region, etc. But certainly in the US, if your personal data can be used to create better bespoke experiences for you, people are generally quite happy. Now, you can't be creepy, but you can, if your personal data can be used to create something that's customized for you, most people in the US are generally okay with that. You might not necessarily see that as much in Europe. So again, it really depends on the region as to whether people see the use of personal data as an issue. Now, clearly, there's personal data like your name, how old you are, where you live, etc. And then there's personal data like your medical records. So, again, I think, for most people, medical records are not necessarily something that they just plaster all over. Their bank details, again, there's certain bits of data that are personal, but they're not necessarily things that you want to share. And hopefully, most organizations have done a much better job of storing those credentials for you than Facebook with your pictures, which are just, anyone can Google anything or just search on Facebook. So yeah, I think there's, again, just thinking about the different types of personal data. I think the only thing I would suggest is that passwords, at least until we get quantum computing, passwords and encryption are really important. And I know sometimes it can be a bit of a pain to have different passwords for different things. If you have the same password for everything, there's a password breach on a website that you use to buy, cookies for your dog, and you're using the same password for your bank. Unfortunately, there is, challenges there of your own making. But yeah, again, this is not necessarily an easy thing to solve. And I think outside of financial and health data, I think most people are okay with most other data, at least in the US, most other data being used, as long as it's being used for positive outcomes for them, not just to, not for their data just to be sold so that they can be spammed.
Hmm. So your point is that until and unless the data is being used for a positive impact, people are okay with it. But when it comes to the negative impact, or for some false reasoning, people should be very very careful about what they are seeing. They should not
Mhm.
believe what they see. They should do a thorough research before believing, before even believing what they are seeing. That's what I think.
Absolutely. I
Yeah,
think there's a
that's
point.
the
I think there's
yeah.
a point in time where the only time you'll ever know whether something is actually real is when you see it with your own eyes. And I don't think that time is going to be that far away now. And I seriously mean that. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't believe everything or most things that you see, but I think there'll be a point where you will only 100% be able to confirm is when you're physically there in person, seeing the thing in front of you.
Correct.
Outside of that, everything that you see on this, your
Hmm.
laptop, etc., meetings like this could easily be fake.
Faked. Yeah. Right. 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 So, some last words for our budding entrepreneurs who are, trying to build something great out of AI, who are trying to, help the community by building something really good using AI. So, what would you like to suggest such entrepreneurs? Some few words from your experiences, like, or like, something which could enlighten them, could, empower them out while their journey.
Mhm. Well, first of all, keep going. Okay, you know your ability to push forward and have the balls to actually do what you're doing is commendable. It's not always
Mhm.
easy, but it's definitely something that those that can and do, it's appreciated. The
Mhm.
second, I think, is really think about what problems are you trying to solve, and if you are trying to sell into organizations, you really do need to be able to sell a solution to a problem. Um,
Mhm.
and ideally, what you want your solution to be the solution for many problems. And I'll tell you the reason why. Is I've worked with technologies where we found a one thing, one user case that a certain technology could work with, and the client would be interested, but the costs for just one user case versus, say, 10, 15, they're inhibitive. And so you kind of lose the momentum because most people, especially in the world of automation, go back to RPA here, you could deploy RPA in 1,000 different processes, okay? Reusability. It's not, hey, I can only solve this one process problem. No, it's like, hey, we could go anywhere in your entire organization. Great. If you're not that amenable, if you're not able to solve known business problems, multiple known business problems, or unless the one business problem you're solving is massive, solving
Mhm.
month end for finance, massive. The only problem you solve, so what? It's huge. Um, but unless you're solving big problems, you do need to think about, what are the problems versus problem that you are solving. Because getting somebody interested in solving the one thing is great, but if you can't figure out what the other things are that you can solve,
Mhm.
it does make scaling for your organization really, really hard. Why? It's 10 times harder to win a new client than it is to scale an existing, right? So you've got to try and think about how you are able to land and expand. And if your solution isn't land and expandable enough, and it's expensive, then you are, and I've seen this, throughout the last 10, 15 years, it's going to be very, very hard to scale and to turn that organization into something that is, meaningfully large. And so yeah, that's kind of my biggest piece of advice. You've got to try and figure out, multiple, not be all things to all people, but you do need to be, you do need to be able to have a good understanding of the types of problems that you can solve. And even if that means going down specifically to industry levels, etc., department levels. Let's just have a good understanding of what these things are. And I think that will be something that I, as a consultant, have found easy. You know, I appreciate that, an ability to solve 7 problems versus just one makes my job easier to sell those type of technologies. The other thing is as well is use find people who are interested in your technology, will be able to support you early on in that journey, and are then able to maybe open a few doors. It's like, you don't have to do it all yourself. Relationships are really important. New ones, existing ones. Don't undervalue a cold reach out to somebody of interest who you're not selling to, but you're hoping that you can sell your vision and your product to them so that they will have a conversation about you later down the line. That is really important as well.
All right, all right. That sounds actually amazing. So, thank you so much, Wayne, for being on this podcast, for your valuable words. I cannot thank you enough for being with us, for sharing your time, for sharing your insights, for sharing your experiences. This was a very good conversation that we had here, and I hope our viewers will definitely love and learn a lot from your experiences, from your point of views regarding AI. Thanks a lot for being on the podcast. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thanks for having me.